Hey everyone, in today's episode, I've got Matt Frye back on the show, and today we're going to be talking about the findings from our annual ransomware survey that we do every year here at Hornetsecurity. So in this survey, we ask respondents all kinds of questions about ransomware. Have they been infected by ransomware? How did they deal with it? What were the vectors of attack? How are they protecting themselves from ransomware? So we've got a lot of great data to go through, and that's what we're focusing on today in this next episode of the Security Swarm podcast. Well, everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Security Swarm podcast, the podcast that brings you the knowledge and insights straight from the security lab here at Hornetsecurity. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I've got Matt Frye with me today. How's it going, Matt?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Andy. Good to see you again. I think we've done one of these before, but I think it was live at InfoSec last time. So
I
nice
think
to be
it
in
was
a quiet, calm environment. No noise and no background chatter.
Right. Those live events are always, the audio is always a crapshoot. I would think we had wireless mics there, and we kept randomly picking up one of the other stands on the show floor, if I remember correctly. But we made it work. We made it work.
We did. We always make it work. So
that's right. Well, I think this is your second time on the show, and for those viewers that may not know who you are, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name is Matt Frye. Like I said, I'm head of Presales and Education here at Hornetsecurity. I've been here about 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, I used to head up a support team here in Bristol in the UK for about 10, 14, 15 years almost, I guess. And I've been around in the industry for about 25 years. So I've been around the block and I've seen a few things in my time, I reckon.
Yep. Yeah. Both of us have seen a few things in our time. You a little bit more so than me. You've been in the industry a little bit longer. I've got a little bit of gray hair to catch up on you, but I'm getting there. So anyway.
When you lose it, that's when they worry.
There we go. Well, I think what we're talking about today, Matt, is some statistics, which is interesting because the episode we just mentioned, the live episode, which for those that are interested, I'll link in the show notes. But that live episode we did at InfoSec, we were also talking about some statistics there as well. So
I think we were. I think that was around data governance and data storage issues or possibilities, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But today we are focusing specifically on ransomware. Now, for those folks listening / watching, every year here at Hornetsecurity, we do a big survey that we run specifically on ransomware in our industry, right? And I figured what we would do for this episode is we would kind of run through the main points and kind of discuss them, right? And I'm happy to report that there are some good numbers on this report. There are a few bad numbers too, right? And we're gonna get into that.
Always bad numbers, Andy. You know, there's always bad numbers. That's why you pick me for these shows.
That's right. So anyway, but I say we start with a good number, and I'm going to start here with this particular statistic. One of our findings said that 93.2% of respondents ranked ransomware protection as, quote, very to extremely important, unquote, in terms of IT priorities within their organization. It's a good number. More than 9 out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a great number. It's good to see that people are paying attention. I think it's still not high enough, obviously. I want it to be almost 100%. And I think a lot of people were slow to the game. It's over 90%. I'm not going to complain.
Yep, I don't know what grading scale they use in schools in the UK, but I know over here that's like an A-, right?
I'd give you an A-. I'd give you an A-. Yeah. It's been a few years since I've been at school. You don't need to keep bringing it up, Andy. But yeah, I'll give it an A-. I'll give it an
A-. So I'm happy with that number. Like you said, it could be higher, but it seems that with everything that's been going on in our industry over the years with ransomware, the message is finally starting to sink in that, hey, you need to have your eye on the ball in terms of ransomware, right?
Of course. Absolutely.
Now, let's go to a bad number. And this one's kind of interesting, right? 12.2% of respondents, 12.2%, doesn't seem like a high number first, but wait until I finish the statement. 12.2% of respondents do not have a disaster recovery plan in place in the event of a ransomware attack. That number's too high, in my opinion. I mean, it's only 12.2%, but that's too high to not have a disaster recovery plan in place.
It's ridiculously high. It's one of my bugbears or beefs, as I'd call it over here. A business continuity plan, a BCP, as I always call it, disaster recovery plan, DR plan, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely fundamental. And it's important to understand that the tools we at Hornetsecurity provide are tools for that plan, in my opinion. And you must have a plan. It's all fair and well saying, I got my stuff backed up. I think we joked the other week when we spoke about this. Okay, so I deliver you my USB box. Here it is. This is everything you need. No, it isn't. I need to get this back into a business platform, and I need to get my users access back to that. And in very, very simplistic terms, that's your BCP. To have over 10% of people just not have a BCP is still far too big a number for me. Far too big.
It is way too high still. And like you said, you have those people that are like, yeah, I have a backup, right? And like you said, having a business continuity plan is way more than just having a backup. I mean, I think about all the different components that are needed there. Where am I going to recover to? Let's say my business, my building is a smoking crater in the ground. Something as simple as, where are people going to work from? How are they going to communicate with customers? Where are they going to get backup computers? What are you going to do for phones? I mean, there's so much involved in a business continuity plan, more than just having a backup, right? I mean, anyway,
and you're absolutely right. And again, to just put it into perspective, it doesn't have to be that hole in the ground. I was listening to a random smart home podcast last night, and the guy kept referring to episode 3 where my basement got flooded and he lost a load of kit. But the same thing kind of applies to IT. It can be a real minor flood with the server that's on the floor that's out of action. You can't go back into that room. You've now got to find another location. You've got to find another piece of hardware to restore onto, because this is now water damage. It scales up, and that obviously scales with the business, but it scales up all the way through.
I think it's funny you mention that specific example, because I have experienced that specific situation you just mentioned. Okay. One of my very first IT jobs, I don't think I've mentioned this on the show yet, so this will be a new story for folks. Okay. But one of my very first IT jobs was for a K through 12 school system here in the States. Mm-hmm. And this happened over a weekend. We got a call that, hey, you guys need to come in here. There's water in the server room, type of thing. So I don't know why. I don't remember exactly why. This was my early 20s, so I didn't ask a ton of questions, right? But this particular section of the building, every single door had like these rubber seals on the bottom.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so what had happened is a hot water pipe in the ceiling above the server room. Don't ask me why there was a hot water pipe above the server room, but there was. Had burst, and the water system was like, whoa, hey, this pipe is not as hot as it should be. So what does it do? Keep sending hot water down this pipe, right? So the maintenance guy told us that when they opened the door to that room, literally water flowed out. So couple issues there. Not only were like the bottom 3 servers submerged in water, but this water was, I don't know what it comes out to in Celsius, but this water was like 112 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. Yeah. So you think about the humidity involved in that room for however long, right? Anyway, so that is a situation where, your building's not a smoking crater in the ground, but you've got a disaster on your hands, and now you got to recover, right? And that's, thankfully we had done our homework. We pulled out our, business continuity plan, and we went through the playbook, right? So anyway, coming back to our data, our next point here, 90.5% of respondents say that they protect their backups from ransomware, which is good. 9 out of 10, right? I'd like it to be higher. And you can dig into the specifics here. Again, I'm just covering the key points, but in our specific data points, you can see, kind of what they're using to protect their backups from ransomware. And it ranges, right, from immutable storage to air gapping to offsite media, that type of thing. And I always come back to offsite media because I still see that being quite offline media. Sorry. I keep coming back to that recently because I've been hearing a lot of chatter like, okay, well, my USB disk is on the shelf in my server room. They can't ransomware it, right? Well, that's true, but I have seen a recent uptick in the last year or two where threat actors will put very cleverly hidden scheduled tasks in place to when a new disk is detected, right? Or on a regular cadence when they've determined that a new disk is being plugged into a system to go out and encrypt that disk, and the administrator's none the wiser, and 2 weeks go by and now all of those physical disks that are sitting on the shelf, those are all ransomware too, right? So that's it's a good method, but it's not infallible is my point, right? So anyway, so again, 9 out of 10 that are taking steps to protect their backups from ransomware. Great news. What's interesting here, and I think you mentioned this when we were talking about this just before we hit record, Matt. If we compare this to the first data points where 93.2% of respondents said they rank ransomware protection as very to extremely important, but then only 90% of respondents are actually taking the steps to protect their backups from ransomware.
Exactly. It should be exactly the same. And I guess it alluded to one of my thoughts is I'm not totally sure exactly who we asked these questions of. I think it was a mix between let's call them soldiers on the ground and the management or the compliance officers in that respect. But it does show the gap. And at the end of the day, if 93% are saying it's very to extremely, but only 90% of them are doing something, there's still a gap. And it is only 3%. It could be a lot worse. And in previous years, I've seen much bigger gaps. So I'm pleased to see a closing of the gap, I guess.
Yep, definitely. Our next data point here kind of centers around tool sets, right? And the data point is that 75% of respondents cited endpoint detection software with anti-ransomware capabilities as the most common tool to combat ransomware. Now, that said, this is not the only tool, right? This is just the most common tool that is in use by the respondents in terms of combating ransomware, which, when we look at it from that perspective, like the most common tool, I look at this one and I guess if I'm really honest, I'm a little disappointed. I mean, don't get me wrong. EDR software, that endpoint detection response, it's important. Don't get me wrong. In my experience, is it the magic silver bullet against ransomware? I don't think it is, personally. I've not seen it work well to that degree. I will always fall back to the recommendation of a multi-tiered approach when it comes to security. I mean, EDR, like I said, important, but it needs to be paired with other things, right? Backups. Needs to be paired with email security, phishing security, awareness training. There's all kinds of other things. Proper logging. There's all kinds of other things that need to happen that go along with that, right? And that's just kind of my thoughts on that particular data point.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder that it's the most common tool because it's, let's call it the oldest tool in the book. It's the one that's been around the longest potentially. So it might be the oldest tool in the book. But at the end of the day, it's a multi-layered approach. It's as simple as that. You need a gateway solution, something to stop it getting in. You need something on the inside, in case it is, to start firing against it. But yeah, multi-layer, always multi-layer. And
definitely. And I think the other...
Put all your eggs into one basket isn't necessarily the right way to go.
Definitely. I think the other common one that we saw in our findings was... very tight control of application execution, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a number of native Windows features as well as a number of third-party features out in the industry that if an application is not whitelisted, it doesn't run on the endpoint, right? And I mean, that's all well and fine. My experience with those types of solutions is that they are very difficult to manage. It takes a lot of operational maturity for an IT organization to properly manage whitelisting of applications inside of an environment, right? So, I mean, again, for those that it's working well for, That's great. I'm not knocking it. It is a great solution, but it does take a lot of, like I said, operational maturity to do it well. So
I agree, and I think kind of the flip side to that is that we live in a collaborative environment right now. We live in an environment and a society where we want to collaborate. We want to. That's what Microsoft do so good, for example, with their products. Collaboration is the key. But at the end of the day, it's okay to collaborate. You've just got to secure it as well.
right.
And that's where. But that's, again, to me personally, that's why you need the multi-layer approach, because no matter what you're using, you need these different layers to build on each other to make sure the security is there.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Our next data point here kind of focuses on, those organizations that have been victims of ransomware attacks. And this number is still too high, in my opinion. 19.7% of respondents said that their organization had been the victim of a ransomware attack, with the majority of said attacks, 62.1% of them, occurring in the last 3 years, which, again, like I said, this number is too high, in my opinion. It does not surprise me, though, that the vast majority of them have happened in the last 3 years, though, because it just speaks to the acceleration of ransomware attacks, right? And I read another interesting statistic. I forget what news article it was, but I read an interesting statistic recently that the dwell time, it's another statistic in cybersecurity, dwell time has decreased. And for those that don't know what dwell time is basically the amount of time from initial infection of a network to the point of something bad actually happening, right? So if I'm the threat actor gaining a foothold into the target organization to actually exfiltrating the data and or ransomwaring it, that amount of time has decreased, right? Which is a bad thing for us security folks, right? Because it means we have less time to respond. And so I just kind of taking all of that in, those different pieces and thoughts, like I said, it doesn't surprise me that the majority has happened in the last 3 years. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Matt.
No, I mean, you've kind of answered it there, and to just expand on that, it's simply a growing industry. The speed, the power of the machines that they're able to use now, the fact that you can buy it as a SaaS product almost, this ransomwaring,
Right.
it's not only getting more prevalent, it's getting more powerful. And exactly as you've alluded to there, that increases the speed. That means they're able to get in quicker, they're able to activate quicker, they're able to encrypt quicker, and they're able to get themselves back out and hidden away again quicker, which just all leads to harder and harder fighting of the scenario.
Yep, definitely. So then we just got done talking about victims of ransomware attacks. So our next data point kind of builds on that. And we saw that nearly 80%, 79.3% of ransomware victims reported that they did manage to recover compromised data from backup, right? So,
which is 80%. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
It's 10% less than those people using a product. So there's already a 10% margin there of products that are not fitting the bill.
Right.
Again, in my personal opinion, I think that's going to go back to a BCP. I think the BCP is possibly at fault more than the software. I don't know. But without a plan, it's okay. Again, my analogy at the beginning, here's my data. I'm good, yeah? It's okay. It's in this black box, imaginary. Imagine this black box.
Right.
But you must have the plan there in order to actually get that data back to your end users. And I think that's, in my personal opinion, probably what that 10% is.
Yeah, that would make sense. So it's, again, 80% B minus, right? Well, technically at 79.3, we're actually at a C plus. Now it doesn't seem so good.
Right? Okay.
But anyway, but still, at least they were able to recover from backup, right? And this speaks to the veracity with which, I think that's the first time I've used the term veracity on this show. So it's my new vocab word for the show for me. The veracity with which threat actors go after backup storage, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's just there's so many tricky ways that they can get around to deleting backup storage, exfiltrating it, and then deleting it, and then all kinds of mischief that they can get up to there. And I feel like the only real backup solution I've seen to that I've not heard of widespread. Heck, I've not even heard of an attack where immutable storage is what I'm talking about. I've not heard of any attack yet where proper immutable storage was removed, deleted, or affected in any way, shape, or form as part of an attack, right?
No, absolutely, because it shouldn't be. If it's true immutable storage, it shouldn't be touchable, and so the data's there. But again, I got to allude to the fact that that's okay, and you've got your data, but you still got to get it back to your end users.
Exactly. Correct.
With part of your BCP plan.
Yep.
Continuity. Yeah.
Yep. So we've talked a lot about ransomware, how it's impacted organizations, but what about how it got to those organizations in the first point? And that's what this next bullet point focuses on, is the vector of attack. And our respondents show that 51.7% of respondents reported that that the email and phishing was the main attack vector for ransomware attacks, which not a surprise. I don't think there's a whole lot of surprise there.
A little low, in my opinion. I think as a global average, I think it's closer to 60-70% globally. It is still the main attack vector without question.
Sure.
And I think globally it's a little higher than that. But in terms of this respondents, 50%, that's still 51. That's still the majority of attacks are coming into it, which again leads back to what you said before, that we need a multi-layered approach. You quite simply need a gateway to stop the stuff getting in. You also need something on the inside should it get in to give you the ability to deal with it and fight it as best you can, and maybe still stop it in its tracks. And if it doesn't stop it in its tracks, then you need the backup, you need the mutability, and you need everything else to be able to recover from it post. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I'll have to dig into the data a little bit more and do some comparisons here, but I wonder if the reason why, because I think it's a little bit low too as well. And I wonder if part of this is why is because this question was focused specifically on ransomware attacks. And so I think about all the other types of very common attacks where phishing, social engineering, spear phishing, all that is used as the initial attack vector. It makes me think about the rise in business email compromise attacks, right? Where ransomware is not necessarily the end goal. It's more to trick the C-suite into siphoning off money in some way, shape, or form. So I wonder if that would explain the gap, being this question focused specifically on ransomware.
It could well be. It absolutely could well be. Again, like I said, those figures I was quoting of 60-70% are just for attack vectors in the plural, not just ransomware attacks.
Right.
But again, and even if this is only physically, targeted at ransomware attacks, it's still interesting to see that over 50% of the ransomware attacks are still coming in via email as a primary source. I mean, at the end of the day, again, this is the world we live in, a collaborative world, a communicative world. We want to talk to people. You and I, as a user in a business, whether we're a head of the department, whether we're, I use my old school analogy again, a post boy in an old lawyer's post room, in the sense, you want to collaborate with your friends, your colleagues in the business, and you need to collaborate with your customers, and that all is what the Microsoft and other products deliver for you, that ability to collaborate. But that just means more attack vectors and more methods for attack for threat actors.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, Matt, we've got just a few minutes left here and two more data points to go through. And the first one of these two is focused around security awareness services. So like end user security awareness training. And I was really happy to see this particular statistic. So 81% of respondents said their organization provides user training to recognize ransomware attacks, which is cool. News. I'd like to see that one a little higher, but
always
B- at 81%. That's pretty good compared with previous years.
I feel like I'm being marked by my teacher. I love it.
B-, that's right.
Yeah.
But, and I was happy to see this percentage here. 95.8% of respondents stated that the training was quote unquote useful. Yeah. Now, I'm happy to see that. I know it's not a really strong word like amazing or awesome. I'll take useful, because I've seen a lot of chatter in the industry lately of people being, I don't know how I want to say it, less than enthused about having to manage a security awareness product. And so they're not sure if there's value in it. There absolutely is value in it. And this
100% value.
the statistic here proves it, right?
Yep. And if I'm honest, at the moment, it's the most interesting and my favorite part of my job here at Hornetsecurity at the moment is our SaaS product. Without wanting to plug that specifically right here now, I am engaging with a number of companies right now who've all started a conversation with me in the vein of, but we don't need that because we've got X, Y, Z in place to deal with it. And I'm in the middle of the third test with a company of ours, and I'm loving giving them the results. 2,000 people clicked on this. What? It's just such an area of vulnerability. At the end of the day, that the users, us the people in the seats, at the end of the day, we're the ones who get that email. Something gets through. Nothing's 100%. Everything we've spoken about here, but if you took every answer from here, you took every product that we had to offer you and put it in there, nothing is 100%. And in that scenario, something might end up on an end user's desk, and when it does, they need to be prepared and aware for it. And in everything we say, we all think we're better than we are in everything we do, and we all think we can spot a phishing email until you drop our tests in, and then we sit and have a chat with the board about the results of those tests. You may want to think again in this scenario. And I'm doing it again this week. I've got another one next week, and I mean, it's really good, as you said, to see that 95% of people are saying that this is useful, this is good, this is adds value by saying useful. It's adding value to the company to have a SaaS implementation. And then again, to lead on to that, again, it should just be part of the process. And using our tools, like ZAS in this example, is just the tool that you can use, and it's simple to configure, simple to set up. Let it do its stuff in a set way that we manage, we organize. But you deal with the plan that comes with that. Okay, again, that to me, that all comes into a BCP. Phishing awareness training is part of your BCP, making sure users understand if something lands, what the consequences may be. You can have those discussions within your company, and then ultimately focus on your business, not deal with the products in depth and every nuance of it.
Right. That's good advice. Good advice. So I'm going to wrap things up with this last bullet point, and I guess kind of like a takeaway for everyone, right? And don't be one of these organizations. And the statistic here is 28.9% of M365, Microsoft 365 respondents, those organizations using M365 in their business, said that they do not have a recovery plan in place in the event of a ransomware attack. Now, surprise, M365 data is also subject to ransomware via a number of means, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we spoke literally before this and said, I am the worst culprit, and you've admitted you are too. I sync my SharePoint sites down, okay? And I sync my OneDrive files down to my PC for speed of access, usage. We were literally talking there about another presentation we're doing to a customer and dealing and sharing work on the same PowerPoint. It's 400 meg. I can't download that every time I want to make an edit and wait for the download, edit it and save it and walk away again. I sync it down. I work on it locally. So do you. And then it works. And it works beautifully.
It does.
That's now a file on my machine. So if my machine is compromised, it's ransomware, it copies it up. Microsoft doesn't un-ransomware it on the way back up to Microsoft storage, does it? But I'll let you say the next bit. This is something you taught me before, but even if he's not syncing it, you're saying you're hearing of ways now to attack storage direct.
There are other known methods of ransomware attack on 365 services. And Paul Schneckenberg and I actually talked about this a little bit in the previous episode, which I'll put in the show notes, folks, for you to take a look at that. But the example I always give right now is the Well phishing kit. It's a well-known phishing kit out on the dark web, spelled W3LL. And basically what this phishing kit does is it acts as a reverse proxy to M365 authentication services. We went into great detail on how it works in the episode I mentioned. So be sure to check it out there. But basically what it allows the threat actor to do is it allows them to stealthily grab the user's authentication token. And then we're seeing situations where that authentication token can then in some cases be paired with like M365 PowerShell to actually reach up and encrypt stuff that sits inside of Exchange Online or SharePoint or OneDrive, right? So
that's using direct access methods. That's getting straight into the root data, and with PowerShell scripting and then the clever encryption, that you can just do it straight off the bat into 365.
Yep. And if you go out to YouTube and just do a search for M365 ransomware, you'll find documented attacks out there too, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
They are out there. They're not as prevalent as on-premises ransomware attacks, but they do happen. So
I'm going to end with my statement of you need a business continuity plan.
Yep, exactly.
And you need good products inside that business continuity plan. That's what.
And I think that's the takeaway, right? Is the business continuity plan, definitely. So, well, Matt,
and the
I want to say
thanks
inside
it.
That's right. That's right. So, Matt, I want to say thanks for spending some time with us today, and it's always good talking to you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Andy. Thank you, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, definitely. And all of you watching, thanks for spending some time with us today. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We are available out on the YouTubes and all of the various podcasting platforms, so chances are you can find us on your platform of choice. With that, we'll let you go. Stay safe out there. We'll have a good one, and talk to you later.